good afternoon and evening. So, really thrilled to have the opportunity today on behalf of the Sherry Sobrato Brain Cancer Survivorship Program for us to discuss this incredibly important topic of emotional wellness. And really thrilled to have our discussion today be led by Dr. Melissa Brie. As all of you on this call know, that living with a brain tumor involves a lot of uncertainty, and it's an unavoidable part of this brain tumor journey. It's natural for that to be associated with anxiety and challenging emotions that can arise along the way. And while some of these challenges are practical, there are actually several evidence-based strategies that can help manage anxiety and respond to this living with uncertainty with greater awareness, resilience, and self-compassion. And so Dr. Melissa Brie is going to join us today and lead us through a discussion. Dr. Brie is an assistant professor in the UCSF Department of Neurological Surgery within the Brain Tumor Center at UCSF and a clinical neuropsychologist specializing in supporting individuals and families impacted by brain tumors. Her presentation today will take a closer look at three sections of the recently published booklet that she helped lead development of, Living Well with a Brain Tumor: Strategies for Emotional Wellness. And she's going to offer several practical tools and tips that can be implemented in your daily life. We are also incredibly grateful for the opportunity to be joined by a patient's voice and advocate today, Christine Woodling, who you're going to hear from a little bit later on, and has really generously offered to share her personal perspective on navigating anxiety and uncertainty while thriving with a brain tumor. We'll have time for questions, as Mary Lovely said, at the end of the presentation. So please include them in the chat. You can send those questions to me directly, or if they're in the general chat, just be sensitive to personal information that might get shared throughout. And then reminder that today's session will be recorded and added to the patient video library that Naomi helps to curate and available at a later date for anyone who'd like to revisit this really important discussion and topic. So thank you again for being here, and look forward to chatting with you at the end of the session. And Dr. Brie, take it away.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. What a lovely, warm welcome from everybody. I'm so glad to be here with you. As they mentioned, I had the great privilege of working with so many people who are living with brain tumor and experiencing some challenges with coping and living with that uncertainty. And through my work with folks, I feel like I've been able to get a lot of sort of like crowdsourced wisdom from people on what's been really helpful. I want to make sure I share that with you. And we're so lucky to have Christine here today for that perspective as well. But also, I want to make sure you have some evidence-based strategies that can be really helpful that we want to add to your toolbox if they're not already there. And that we have sort of, you're able to take away something from this, something you can implement right away. So we're going to be practicing stuff together even. So we'll get into it. We'll get into the practical tips even. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right. Can you guys see it on your side?
Looks good.
All right. Thank you. Hey, nailed it, guys. All right. We're off to a good start. Okay. So, all right. So let's jump in here. As Dr. Taylor mentioned, we're very proud that we were able to pull together some of these strategies that I was mentioning that are based on evidence and other things that we have sort of discovered through our work with people going through this experience. And we kind of, put it all together in this Living Well guide. Other people may be familiar with the first in the Living Well series. We did a cognitive focused one as well. This is sort of the part two, focus more on emotional wellness. So this is also available through the resources page, the PDF version of that, or in the clinic, we've got hard copies as well. So I just wanted to point out that that is a resource that's available to you, and also that what I'm going through today is written down in here. So you don't need to, hopefully, feel the need to like take a bunch of notes or something, because we'll have it actually, the hard copy of it that you can reference later. And also we'll send out the slides afterwards. So I wanted to point out too that there's a lot of different sections that are covered in this guide, but we're going to focus on three of them today: the general strategies for wellness, and then managing anxiety sort of broadly, and then this idea of living with uncertainty. Focus on those three specifically. I wanted to point out too that one of the things we developed for this guide is a handout to be used as sort of a wellness toolbox. So if you have the hard copy of this, it's toward the end, and then PDF you'd scroll toward the end. There's a this handout that you can use to sort of go through and write down some of the things that you're noticing tend to help you feel better and to help maintain your wellness. So it can be sort of a roadmap or a recipe that you can reference if needed, to help you when you're not maybe feeling as well, or you're maybe your capacity for taking on some stressors maybe doesn't feel as strong as it could be. Um, that we know that you've got those tools to be able to manage those, but sometimes it's hard to access them when you're feeling so overwhelmed. So having stuff written down can be really helpful for that reason. And so we have this toolbox actually is like a written document to help with that function. So writing down things that help now, what's helped in the past, maybe that you maybe's fallen out of practice, maybe new ideas to try, some from this guide or others you've heard about. And then keeping it somewhere accessible is going to be really helpful. Some people put it up on their fridge so they can see it easy, some by the bed. Some people like take a photo of it and keep it on their phone. Whatever is helpful for you, but having something concrete to access when you're feeling more overwhelmed can be really helpful in giving you some guidance as to some next steps that you can take in those moments. All right, so we're going to jump into some general wellness strategies to boost your mood. These are things that hopefully kind of give you, sort of some strong like resilience and capacity for managing when things start to feel stressful or start to feel overwhelming. These can kind of help get you in a place where things feel you feel more able to tackle them, let's say. And then they also can be really helpful when things are more stressful to implement to help with managing the stress at the time. But these are general wellness strategies we're recommending doing as a daily habit if you can, or engaging in these pretty regularly. It tends to help with sort of prevention of feeling overwhelmed, if you want to put it that way. So one thing is movement. This can be, depending on where you're at with movement and with activity and your body, this can be something, fairly simple. Can be, chair exercises, moving to whatever your capacity is at the moment, all the way to, maybe trying a new dance class or challenging yourself in that way. But just getting out, staying active as much as you can, is just a really powerful way to help with boosting your mood. Mental activity and novelty. So that's really talking about, staying engaged with trying things that are new or enjoyable. Oftentimes, when things feel really overwhelming, especially when you have a lot of appointments to get to, or you're in some active treatment cycles, things where your schedule's gotten pretty regulated by just managing the treatment for the disease. That phase in particular, I feel like some of these things can fall off of the daily routine. So getting back to some of those things can be really helpful when you feel like you have the capacity to start adding things back in. So it could be something creative you enjoy doing. Could be, getting back to maybe doing some cooking or playing some games, reading, whatever sort of feels like it's something engaging to do. Keeping up with that, or if it's something that has gotten out of practice, maybe getting that back into your day to day could be really helpful as well. As part of that, the doing things you love. This is oftentimes things that come up with folks I'm working with, but it's really hard when some of these emotions come up to see the things that you love or engage in them in a way that feels joyful. But it's also another really important part of mental health and mental wellness is allowing for that, providing space and opportunity for having those moments of joy and of doing the things that you love. Those maintain and stay as important through the whole journey, and it can be hard to the focus on those might be shifting to something else. And so it's just a reminder that you got the capacity to shift it back a little bit if you can here and there. Developing meaningful connection, making sure that you're staying connected with others, whether that's friends, family, the support group, which is a lovely option. Um, connection with your community. A lot of people I work with volunteer for neighborhood associations or are involved in their neighbors in some ways. Staying connected with others in a meaningful way is a really powerful tool also to not only for your own mood, but to help with that sense of purpose. A lot of times, folks, when they're going through this process, may not be engaging in work or other activities in the same way for a lot of reasons. And if that structure that sort of provided a lot of purposefulness to your day is not available in the same way, this can be another way of gaining some of that purpose back, doing something meaningful through connection with others. Some of the folks I worked with volunteer also maybe to and also form connections through that kind of activity. But it's one of the most powerful tools you can have to maintaining that wellness feeling, that sense of connection and support with others. And so if you are feeling more isolated and feeling more alone, talking with others, especially people in this group, I know a lot of people have great ideas around ways of finding connections and building that support network. That could be a really good place to start. This last one, positivity, relaxation, and gratitude, I feel like we're kind of clumping a lot into that statement. But what we're really sort of speaking to is that when a lot of things are feeling like they're in a sort of negative category, a lot of negative thoughts might be coming to mind. That's really common. It can be really hard to see the other things. That lens that you're looking through might be a little bit skewed toward negative thoughts, activities, all the things like might skew that direction. So making sort of an intention to look for the positives in things, even though it might feel sort of forced at times, can actually be really powerful. Like even at a neuroscience kind of level, your brain responds to those things, and it may actually change the way you perceive things going on around you. Finding moments of relaxation, we're going to dive into that more today, is really helpful in calming that nervous system response down and putting you in a place where you're more able to manage stressors and just the day-to-day stuff that's going on, and just putting you in a place where your wellness is at its best. And then moments of gratitude. This one I think gets overlooked sometimes or feels underrated, but it's one of the ones I have people tell me is the most helpful, actually. It's taking those few moments during the day to be able to reflect on the things that are going right or that you appreciate, or that maybe even, even things that are not feeling like, hugely part of your life, but even just the things that have been keeping you going, like being grateful for having hot water. If you're blessed with hot water, that alone can be something that, in that reflection upon things that you're grateful for, it again sort of shifts the perspective that you're looking at things through, and can help with that. The appreciation can kind of help foster those positive emotions as well. Yeah, grateful for others, for your treatment team. It could be all sorts of things. But if you need to, if it feels hard to feel grateful for something, getting down to the nitty gritty of feeling, grateful for having a meal today, whatever it is that kind of works for you, can actually be really, really helpful. And it's one of the things I hear most from people, felt a little underrated at the time, but that has made a significant difference once they started doing that daily. Some more general wellness strategies. Something that happens with a lot of folks after they've had any impact to their brain tumor in this instance, but also people living with, stroke or traumatic brain injury, when anything has sort of happened where that brain has been impacted, sensory stuff can be really overwhelming really quickly. There's just an overstimulation that can occur. That's really common. And with that, it sort of can drain that mental battery. And that battery is really needed to help with maintaining that capacity to take on your day to day, to take on stressors as they come. So, being able to reduce the amount of sort of cognitive or mental load you have when you can, whether that's sort of modifying your approach to things, maybe still being able to go out to dinner with friends if that's something you want to do and brings you joy, but maybe choosing to sit outside where it's maybe less noisy, or maybe switching it up and having them come to your house where you can control the environment a little bit more. It might be, and I know people are not going to like me saying this, but it might be putting your phone down and not engaging in social media as much. I hate to be the bearer of that news, but that's sometimes that in itself can be really overwhelming and can really bring up a lot of negative emotions. So if that's something you feel like you're going to a lot for distraction or for other uses, understandable, makes sense, and it's something you might just look and see, is that a thing that's been helping me? Has it been serving me? Is this pattern giving me any information? Do I tend to do that when I'm feeling overwhelmed? How do I feel afterwards? Just, play around with that idea, but just this idea of sort of managing what you're taking in, putting up boundaries where you can so that you're not taking on more than you need to. I think that that's going to be just a really good strategy for approaching, all different areas. The keeping those boundaries up is really good. Nutrition, I'm sure you hear this from everybody. The nutrition and the exercise, you probably hear that from everyone you talk to. But nutrition is not something they talk about a lot in terms of mood, but it can make a really big difference. That gut brain axis, that's a thing. Your gut can really inform how you're feeling in terms of mood. So what you eat may make a difference actually sort of in terms of your gut health, and then that might actually make a difference in terms of your wellness. So a lot of people, the studies do support that there can be more depression depending on what you're eating, for example. So just shifting a little bit some of the things that you're eating, some people see a big improvement. Or it might be something like the nutrition might be the caffeine piece. If you're noticing you're consuming a lot of caffeine because you're more fatigued, but now you're noticing you feel kind of revved up, we might look at what are you eating, what are you drinking, to see if that might be impacting how you're feeling. And I find a lot of people too, like if you find like kind of a project or something to work on, if you're like, yeah, I'm going to work on my nutrition, I'm gonna see if that's something I can work on and improve and change. Giving yourself something to focus on and that has a goal to it, has steps, has something that feels purposeful in that way can be really helpful just in itself, even if it's not actually making a direct impact on your gut, let's say. Sleep and rest is an important category, and I know that's a really challenging category too, because I know a lot of the treatments have this side effect on sleep. A lot of people I work with have insomnia or thing really disrupted sleep, and I mean we've all had that bad night's sleep and not felt so good the next day. A lot of irritability can come with that. It's not feeling like yourself, not feeling like you can take on the day or handle very much that's thrown at you. It's really, really common. So if you are having some sleep concerns, talking to your team about that and seeing if there's something that they can do to help with strategies for that, I think it's going to be one place to start, because that's again kind of like some of the foundation we're working from, right? We want to have the most capacity at the beginning of the day to be able to handle things. So if sleep has been disrupted, that might be an area, if you haven't yet explored, seeing if there's anything else that can be done. And then rest, the other side of it, a lot of people I work with, fatigue is a big piece of the puzzle. And so if we're pushing past the point of our sort of mental energy where we have, enough mental energy to handle stressors and to handle social situations and whatever comes up, then that mental fatigue that comes on, oftentimes one of the main red flags that you're fatigued is your mood struggles a bit, the irritability piece, feeling anxious. Some people start to feel angry. When you kind of are pushed too far, you've overtaxed yourself in some way, the mood sometimes is the main warning sign that that has occurred. Um, so keeping an eye on that, both the sleep in terms of making sure you're getting good rest to sort of recharge your mental battery, but also during the day managing sensory information or managing how your boundaries are set or overextending yourself, trying to sort of pace yourself through the day so that you're not feeling as fatigued as the day goes on, especially in the evenings. A lot of people have irritability sort of after that battery has been depleted, right? Possibly adding a nap. A lot of people I talk to, adding a nap can make a world of difference. Midday, 20 minutes or so, just get some actual like power all the way down, get your brain some time to rest and restore, get back to your day. A lot of people have a much better evening after that. So something to consider. Managing stress and cognitive fatigue. So we're going to really dive into stress at in a real detailed way. So I won't go into that too much here. But managing your stress overall is going to help with, in general, kind of keeping you in a place where then when more stressors come on, that you feel more able to manage them. And then the cognitive fatigue, I was just kind of speaking to, being able to keep yourself out of that mental fatigue realm so you have all of the reserves you need in those moments. Um, I wanted to take a moment before we jump into managing anxiety, though, wanted to see if Christine, if you'd be willing to sort of speak to some of the general wellness strategies that you have found have been helpful in your brain tumor journey, and maybe just giving a little introduction for those that don't know you yet about what that journey has looked like for you.
Yeah, so hi everybody. I'm Christine Woodling. I have been diagnosed with an astrocytoma grade 2, coming up on 3 years now. And I had a reoccurrence in August of 2025. And so I did radiation in October and through the middle of November of 2025. And now I've been on a year-long cycle of chemo. Um, and so basically for me managing like my kind of anxiety and doing all of that, a lot of what I do is I'm really into working out. I do yoga, I do pilates, i do I train with a trainer at my gym, because I have seizures that have unfortunately not been stopped by seizure medicines, but that's okay. We're getting close to it, I feel like. And so my trainer and I have really focused on, we laugh a lot. And so he's one of my things that I think helps make my day better. And so, um, and getting that anxiety like pushed away from like going out and doing all my activities has been one of like the best things that I could have ever imagined. Like I used to never be one that like would go out and do all these certain types of activities, but doing this has made such a mind switch in me and being like, oh my gosh, like yes, like now I need this in order to feel basically better in that way. And so, like Dr. Brie was saying, she was like, and I know sleep is also a huge thing. And I fall asleep pretty easily, but sometimes it's restless too. I feel like because I'm doing all these activities, that's my big thing of how I'm making sure I'm getting good and enough sleep as well because of the movement I get throughout the day. Because I work from home. So obviously, there's not a whole lot of movement going on in the beginning half of my day. So I got to find my places where I can be like, okay, I can move here, I can move here. And this will sort of help me get that almost energy out of my body to, let go. Um, but yeah, so that's kind of something that I do that I feel like help me for that piece. So
That's great. Thank you for sharing that experience with that too. I know it's been really important to you. I wanted
mhm.
to ask in terms of, as you mentioned, this is not something you used to do as much, but
Mhm.
you do now. What do you feel like helps sort of get you started in some of these things and maybe what helps you kind of keep it going?
So one of the things that helped me get started was a breakup, unfortunately, that really pushed me towards it. I just gotten diagnosed and then I had a really hard breakup. And I was like, I need some kind of outlet because staying in my room 24/7 was not going to do anything about either of these things. And so I figured, you know what, I'm going to go to the gym and the gym is going to be like my happy place. And so I'd be in the gym for 2, 3 hours. Like I didn't care how long I was in there. Like it just brought me a sense of comfort and peace to know that I was just not in my room sitting around and crying and I was trying to actively do something. And so I feel like that part was just the best. And then, as I mentioned before, my seizures were really ticked up at the very beginning. I would have like 5, 6 a day, sometimes 3 a day. And so that really put my right hand to basically non use. And so one of the reasons I got my trainer was to help. He helps me now with stability and working on like strength in my wrists and my hands and my grip. And he has been one of the biggest things that I think has come out of this was that really focusing on that and trying to get like because I've had to switch from everything from I'm usually right-handed. I've had to go to left-handed for everything. So just working on that and focusing like, okay, if I can do this, I need to get back to doing this right-handed because I want to for myself. And just seeing like the other day I was working out with him and I actually set a personal record of deadlifts for I did 175 pounds on deadlifts while going through chemo, while still having seizures and everything like that. And I was just so immensely proud of myself. Like I could not believe like that I was able to do that. Like I just never in a million years would I thought that that was something I could do. And I had played sports my entire life and I was never even close to that. So I think having a brain tumor obviously is not ideal, but it has made me someone who is more proud of myself too. Um, and the way that I go about my business and how I do things is a lot more of like in how I take care of myself now. It brings me more joy to go out and do these things. For myself and not just, I'm not doing it for somebody else. All I know is I'm doing it for me and I'm only focusing on me. So like just do that. And when I need someone to like cheer me up or like give me a little bit more of like motivation, I go to my sister-in-law and she's my biggest support system. We have a phrase, it's called "You got this bitch," YGTB. She says it to me every morning when I wake up. She's like, "You got this bitch," ready for the day. Um, so it is, just an amazing thing to have your family also as your backup and your cheerleaders when you feel down and have that like kind of anxiety about it too.
I love it. Yeah, I'm seeing from the crowd, people are also really enjoying your catchphrase. Yeah, having a mantra to live by. I think
Yeah.
others may be adopting that one. I think it's a
Yeah.
good one.
Yeah. No, that's my personal favorite. And we've had that for a little while now. And my brother's been adopting it. But yeah, no, that's definitely our favorite mantra to use.
I love it. Another thing I'm hearing too with the exercise, in addition to just how exercise can be really powerful, just the activity in itself, the
Hmm.
movement and what it does sort of biologically, I'm hearing too that there was sort of setting some goals, feeling accomplishment, like that sense of
Hmm.
accomplishing something and that satisfaction with that, and
Yeah.
having that social connection, those moments of humor and opportunity to talk with other people, like that it provided opportunities for a lot of different sort of
Yeah.
things that might be helpful.
Yeah. So like on your page where it was, talking about eating well, rest, comfort, just everything
Mhm.
on that page. I feel like movement kind of really does that for almost everything. It can do it for so many things. And I don't think I realized that until I got my brain tumor, which is funny enough, but like, you just don't really put two and two together until something like this, I think, kind of happens to you. So yeah, it's just been a really big part of my journey that I have to say, because I am out doing doing an activity at least 4 to 5 times a week. I mean, sometimes not because I am on active treatment on chemo. So when my treatment and my chemo treatment comes, I'm a little bit not as active, but I still try and be as active as possible as I can be.
It's great. And you're noticing a difference, it sounds like, on your mood then when you do keep up
Mhm.
with it.
Yeah. And then when I have also when I do, and then even when chemo week comes and I just need something to like squeeze, I have my Stitch weighted plushie that I have. I'm almost 30 and I love it. It's my favorite thing ever. So it's like a weighted like teddy bear almost, but Stitch. And so I just put it on me and it kind of helps me like relax. And then I've used some of
Mm.
Dr. Bree's methods as well. My favorite one, especially for I think anxiety, is when I'm about to get a seizure. I think I'm about to get a seizure, is doing the box breathing. That is
Mm.
probably one of my favorite ones because it kind of helps me slow my breath down, slow my heart rate down, and kind of realize like, no, everything's fine. You're okay. And and then it ends up being like, oh, I was okay. I was just kind of having an overreaction moment.
Mm. Thank you. And what a wonderful introduction into our next session. A way
Sorry,
to transition us. That's perfect,
my
Christine, because
bad.
we're going to talk about box breathing very specifically. Everyone will get to learn this technique and hopefully benefit from it as well. So thank you for that. I'm going to share my slides again. We'll hear from Christine again later. Thank you for sharing that experience. That's very helpful and very meaningful. We're going to head into managing anxiety. So this is kind of broadly managing anxiety's tips and tricks for that, but also, these moments of like specific spikes of anxiety, like scan anxiety, if folks have heard that term before, leading up to the MRI, things where there might be an increase, understandably, of some of these feelings, these emotions. These strategies sort of work for just broadly if you're feeling nervous, feeling worried, but also during these spikes, they might be particularly helpful. I'm just going to conceptualize anxiety just for a moment because I think it helps in thinking about how anxiety works, where it's coming from, what it's impacting in order to think about what we can do to help it. And if you think about anxiety as something that is a response to like excessive stress, And that excessive stress then is triggering that stress response. So something like getting a brain tumor diagnosis, something like worrying about an upcoming MRI, that nervous system switches on and cranks way up and it's trying to protect us. It's really trying so hard to help. But when we have these moments of stress that are more chronic, when we're having them for for more than what sort of the design of our stress system was intended, when there's something that goes on more long term, it can potentially impact us in a negative way instead. So this sympathetic nervous system response, as this is part of, or what people might hear referred to as fight or flight or freeze is the third one. Not everyone talks about, but it's really important. Can create these physiological changes, faster heart rate, shallow breathing. It's all the things that your body and your mind are needing to do in order to protect you, to fight, to run away from something, to hide, whatever you need to do to protect yourself. So your body responds in kind. It's doing what it thinks you need in that moment. But if it stays around too long, if that system's just in on mode all the time, then we can really start to have a negative impact on our well-being. And I know you can't see the text on this, but I want to show you kind of generally that the stress response affects the whole body. Whenever this is kicked on, whenever there's something significant happening that's stressful or traumatic or something you're really worried about, and that sympathetic nervous system gets turned on and kicks into high gear, a lot of stuff can happen. And some people notice some things, some people notice others. People tend to have some go-tos of things where you're like, ooh, I'm noticing this, I must be pretty stressed. But identifying some of those things can help you to sort of tune into and pay attention to when things are starting to feel overwhelming so that you can use some of these strategies to help manage in those moments or hopefully prevent it getting more overwhelming. So I made this bigger. I'm not sure if it actually helped or not. It's kind of fuzzy now, but I'm just going to show you a little bit the sort of the top half here of thinking about some of the ways that stress impacts you, those racing thoughts, those worry thoughts that are just like little popcorn thoughts, just up all the time, just, taking over your thinking. Some people even have changes to vision. Like that's how like biologic this response is. The quicker breathing, it's usually shallow and faster, dry mouth, your heart can beat faster. Some of the other things that happen is that stress tummy I was mentioning, some of the blood can sort of be redirected to other more important areas that are needed for fighting and fleeing, for instance. And so some areas are sort of deprioritized, and as such, they're not functioning as well. So a lot of people, when they get some sort of stress reaction, notice they're not digesting as well anymore. That's intentional. Your body's doing that to you on purpose, and there's a way we can tell the body, no, it's okay, calm down. I would like you to digest my food today. That's the priority. Bladder urgency, palms getting sweaty, muscle tension, I think is one of the big ones. That tension headache, people will get the neck, this kind of feeling like your shoulders are in your ears. That's really common. But that muscle tension, again, is trying to be helpful. It's prepping you to be able to run as fast as you can away from whatever you're in danger of. But when you're going through something like this, it's not usually the most helpful thing to have your muscles tense all the time. So what can we do about it, right? That's the question. This is a little chart that just shows you very briefly all the different things that this can impact. I just want to sort of highlight that it's not just the physical responses, but emotionally how it impacts you, or cognitively how it can impact your thinking in terms of being able to concentrate. You might get more sad, agitated. Behaviorally, you might find that your relationships struggle more. There might be more conflict there, more irritability. This one right here, reduced healthier, enjoyable activities, that sort of freeze response, that tendency toward withdrawing when we don't feel so good, when we're under a lot of stress, is a natural reaction, and it often works against us. When we're withdrawing from things that tend to help us stay well, then it tends to actually exacerbate the symptoms as opposed to us feeling better. So re-engaging in those things can be so, so important. And it can be really, really hard when you're feeling so overwhelmed. So some of these strategies are to help with that stress response and trying to get that reaction to calm down so that you feel like you're in a little bit more of a place to, okay, let me get back to some of the things that I know are going to help me feel better and keep me feeling better. Okay, so think about it this way, since we're talking about it from sort of this physiologic response. We're looking at calming your body, calming your mind. This mind-body connection is very strong. We need to think about things from all angles. Mood and emotions are going to be a like sort of a biopsychosocial experience in that way. There's the physiological response going on. There's more of the sort of psychology of what lens you're looking at things through. There's the social aspect of the circumstances you're within, the psychosocial stressors you might be experiencing. All of these things sort of come together and show up in a way that's unique to each person. And so I maybe should have started with that at the beginning, but not all of these things are going to work for everybody. And some of them you might find work great and some of them not as helpful. But that's why I give you a whole buffet so that you can try some things out and see if something is helpful or not. But everyone's circumstances are so unique. Everyone's brain tumor journey is also so unique. So this is about kind of creating a toolbox of things that you might be able to use when you need it and to help you kind of maintain in between those moments where things feel a little bit more stressful. So calming your body, calming your mind. One of the main things for this is mindfulness. Other people may have heard of this. I feel like this term is thrown around a lot recently. There's been a lot of research on it. I don't actually know for sure that it's one of the most researched things, but it feels like it. There's been a lot of research on it and how it's helpful for almost everything. So it's also helpful for this, is my point. And what it's doing, the purpose of it in terms of managing mood is that we're wanting to sort of practice the skill of trying to stay present when our thinking starts to take us into the future with the things we're worried about or fretting about may happen, all the hypotheses and things that our brain is thinking about and generating, all of those things that are creating some worry. Also versus the things that we're ruminating on, that we're thinking about that have already happened and we're sort of replaying in our heads. Neither of those is present. If we can get ourselves present and sort of stay in this moment, it helps to bring that focus back to what's in front of us, what's at hand. That in itself tends to calm down some of that anxiety or some of that low mood. So it's really having this intention behind being aware of what's going on right now in this moment, coming out of autopilot. Autopilot's something else that kind of kicks in when we're feeling overwhelmed because things are really hard to deal with. And so our brain goes, you know what, I'm just going to kind of cruise. I'm just going to go through the motions right now. So getting into a place where you can be more intentional and active and engaged in the right now is going to make a big difference. Even though it can feel challenging at first, it's something that can make a big shift if you can sit with it and tolerate it and practice it. So it's something that we want to not do any judgment around. This is not about judging what this present moment is or avoiding it. It's about sort of sitting with it and accepting each moment as it comes, noticing things in that moment to help you stay present with it, and to kind of pull you out of the sort of different directions that your thinking wants to take you. So one of the ways to do this, and this comes actually out of trauma literature, and so it's a strategy that's for really significant stress and has been shown to be really effective for this. And it's one of my favorite strategies. I teach everybody how to do this. So I want to invite you to join me in knowing how to do grounding. So grounding is a mindfulness type practice where you're getting present. We want you to get into the moment, but it's something that oftentimes most of it is focusing outward, externally somewhere in your environment. And I think this is particularly helpful for folks who may be going through health or medical things because your relationship with your body might not be what it used to be. And a lot of mindfulness practices may involve breathing or body scan, something that's sort of focusing inward on your sort of body experience, which sometimes actually is lovely. And the breathing helps a lot of people. But if for you, breathing makes more anxiety, or body scan helps you focus on things that, again, are generating some of these scary thoughts. If that's sort of the direction you feel like things are going, grounding is a great alternative to some of these. And I also just like grounding for everything. I find it's really helpful for when things are starting to feel overwhelming, that those moments you mentioned, Christine, earlier, like you kind of were noticing you were starting to get like the seizure coming on. It's like something felt off for you. It was kind of notifying you of the seizure. But when something kind of feels off, if you have those stress feelings, like maybe your tummy's starting to get a little something, or your breathing is a little more shallow, something's giving you an indication that you're starting to feel overwhelmed. Doing one of these grounding exercises is a great way to sort of interrupt that process instead of getting you into a sort of cycle where that's going to start to create stress and then feed into itself. You can create this kind of anxiety loop and a downward spiral into just not feeling so great. this is a really good tool to use to interrupt that and redirect your focus to something else. We want to redirect it to something neutral, shifting your thoughts away from the distressing thoughts. This helps with regaining a feeling of safety and a control over the situation. Also, that neutral feeling is something to keep in mind because sometimes the things you're focusing on externally, if they're evoking emotion, if it's something that things around you are also stressful, those are not the things to focus on either. We want to aim our focus at something that is meaningless, right? We want to focus on something that's not bringing up a feeling in general. We just want to get our attention out of what is creating some emotional distress in that moment. So what do I mean by that? Let's try some. So here's some of my favorites. They can be a lot of different things. The internet can probably provide some other examples as well. But these are the ones that are from some of the seeking safety, evidence-based practices for trauma that I like the best. So one that you can do anywhere, anytime, for the most part, is in your mind, or you can do it out loud if you're somewhere you feel comfortable doing that. Describing your environment in detail. So use all of your senses. Your sensory experience happens right now. It's in the moment with you. All that information that you're taking in through your senses, you're seeing, you're smelling, you're hearing, all of those is happening right now. So tuning into those can be really helpful in getting you back into this moment. So it might be describing something around the room in your mind that, you're looking at a bookshelf or something, for instance. And so you're saying to yourself, okay, I see a bookshelf. It has 4 shelves. It has wood grain. The whole thing is brown. It looks smooth. It has 7 books on it. It sounds boring, but that's what I want. The more boring, the better. Something fairly neutral, not going to bring up anything that's exciting. We want to have it neutral and sort of meaningless. Something around you that can just be described on its own. We're going to do an exercise next to him that kind of tunes more into the sensory piece of it, but start describing the things around you. You can say them out loud or not. Can help get your attention out into the room when you tend to be focusing on some of those thoughts. And it's pretty remarkable how much more you feel in the room after just doing that for 30 seconds. It can be really quick how much this can help really quickly. This one I think is my favorite, and a lot of people say is their favorite, is naming everything in the room that's a certain color, because it's kind of like a game too. So you kind of look around the room, maybe you start with a certain color, say, all right, I'm going to find everything in this room that's blue. Okay, what do I have over there? Okay, I see a water bottle that's blue. Over there, that book is blue. Oh, that pen over there is blue. By intentionally looking at and noticing things, the noticing is occurring right now in the present. It's getting your attention off what you were thinking about into the room and onto something completely neutral. That water bottle means nothing to me. I'm just noticing it and it's in the room with me, and now I am present. Then you can change it up. What's orange? What's red? So you can go through the colors. So that one's kind of fun. The other game one is the categories game. So you can think of things in different categories. I find that people use this one a lot, maybe in like an MRI or somewhere where the visuals aren't as much available. Something where you can close your eyes. You can do this just by thinking about it. But thinking about all the names of TV shows you can think of, all the ice cream flavors, all the states in alphabetical order, if you want to add a challenge to it, all the capital cities, if you can remember all of those. So that one kind of gives your mind something to do that hopefully is not something that feels overwhelming, to give it again a break from the thing that it was thinking about that was causing some distress. Running cold water over your hands or holding an ice pack, something where there's that cold response where you can kind of touch it and it brings your attention immediately to that feeling. That's again going to provide some relief. So sometimes people will do that while they're at their appointments, get some cold water on the face, maybe even bring an ice pack or a baggie of ice or something with you that you can kind of touch if you need to. Digging your heels into the floor, literally grounding yourself so that you're connected to the floor, connected to the room, pulling your attention down to your feet. What do they feel like on the floor, in your shoes? Wiggle your toes around a little bit if you can. Visualizing a place that feels calming and safe. That's another good one, that if you're having trouble sleeping or you're at the MRI, something where your eyes are closed, you can sort of imagine somewhere else that being in that space brings over sort of a sense of calm, gives you something to occupy your mind with. And if you want to add a nice sort of soothing sort of layer to it, might be somewhere that you really enjoy going. Like, if you have a favorite place in Tahoe, imagine being in Tahoe, and what that feels like, what the smell of the water is like and the trees, and what does it tend to the sky look like? What are there birds or other animals you hear? Like what is that experience like for you? Rubbing your fingertips together. So being able to feel those indentations on your fingerprints, being able to kind of tune into that experience of what that sensation is, and also kind of bring you back into the moment. So these are, just quick little things. You don't have to do them for 10 minutes. These are literally like 30-second activities that tend to provide that interruption to distressing thoughts and bring that sense of relief when it might be really needed, especially in those moments of like heightened stress. Okay, so let's try one all together. For those of you who have joined and you are somewhere safe that you could look around the room, for example, go ahead and try this one. This one's a popular one you may have done already in this group if you've attended this group with Naomi and others before. But this idea of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 gives you kind of a handy way of thinking about it. So using your five senses, maybe name either in your head or say out loud 5 things you can see, 4 things that you can hear, 3 things that you can touch around you, 2 things you can smell, and if you're lucky enough to have something yummy near you, maybe 1 thing you can taste. So thinking about ways to tap into your sensory information. So for those of you right now, they're kind of looking around the room, kind of think about those 5 things you can see, those things you can hear, maybe touch 3 things around you. Is there anything you can smell? And then now notice after you've done that, do you feel more in the room than you did a minute ago? Do you feel more focused on what's happening in front of you than you did a minute ago? So whenever you try any of these two, something to I want to make sure I point out is notice how it impacts you. If you're trying some of these, do a little tune in beforehand. Here's how I'm feeling kind of overwhelmed. My chest is tight. Do the thing. So this is to try grounding. And then check in with yourself afterwards. How am I feeling? Did it help? If I did something a little differently, would it have helped more? Did it help as is? What did it help with? Keeping track of those things is going to help you again sort of fill up that toolbox, that handout that we have. So you kind of know what are the best sort of go-tos, what's the sort of best bang for your buck in terms of what strategies help you the most specifically. All right, keeping on with this theme of calming your body and calming your mind, we want to do some breathing, and we're going to do this together as a team as well, okay? So as Christine was so good to mention already, it was perfect transition. So box breathing is such a good strategy for managing stress. Again, if it's something where breathing creates more anxiety for you, that's okay. Skip this one. Try the grounding one instead. But if you're feeling anxious, feeling unsafe, overwhelmed, that breathing, like I mentioned, kind of speeds up. It gets short, it gets shallow, it tends to end up in the chest up here. Again, it's trying to help. It thinks you're running. But what we want to do in order to signal to our brain that no, it's actually fine. We're safe. We don't need to fight anything right now. We're sitting here all together in a group. Then you can do this, what we call diaphragmatic breathing. It's breathing that engages your diaphragm. So it's a deeper breath that's going to engage your parasympathetic nervous system. So the sympathetic is the on switch, parasympathetic is that off switch. That's the old rest and digest. That's when you're able to kind of finally calm down and turn your digestive system back on, for example. We want that to come on. And this is a really good strategy for that because it taps in on a physiological level to that system. So if you're able to do this technique where you sort of do a deeper breath and engage that diaphragm, it's really effective at turning off the stress system. So we're going to practice it together. We're going to learn the strategy. But overall, what you're aiming to do is do a slower and deeper breath. And you want it to be focused more in your belly. So that belly is going up and down as opposed to your chest. Our anxious breath tends to be up here. We want to kind of pull it down, expand the diaphragm, expand the lungs so we get a deeper breath in there. All right, so here's how to do it. And I'm going to show you as well as tell you here. Okay, so here's the instructions on this one, but I'm going to tell you as I'm showing you sort of on this diagram. Okay, so imagine if you want to join along with me. So putting one hand on your chest if you can, and one hand on your belly if you can. And so I just notice, tune in right now to where you're breathing just normally. Don't do anything different. Just kind of notice, where's your breath right now? Does it feel fast or slow? Does it feel like it's in your chest or is it more in your belly? There's no right or wrong. Just where is it at right now? And just tune in. You can kind of notice the before. And then how are you feeling? Are you feeling a little anxious, You feeling totally calm? You feeling a little sad? Just tune in. How are things going right now? And we're going to try the breathing. We want to tune in again afterwards, okay? So while your hand is on your chest and your belly, I'd like you to try breathing in through your nose. And as you breathe in, I want you to try expanding your belly with that in breath. So it's like you're pushing your hand out with your belly, expanding a balloon. So you're get that belly expanded, pull the air down and out. I like this diagram here because it kind of shows you you're kind of pulling down. Your diaphragm is down in this vicinity. For those of you that have been in like choir or singing kinds of things before, it's tapping into the same thing. That diaphragm that helps you scream, that helps you yell, that push. We want to activate that muscle. And that if you think about and imagine that you're breathing down, that tends to help kind of pull. So if you do that and you want to expand your belly as you breathe in, breathing in through your nose, expand your belly. So that's the technique. That's where we're trying to breathe into, okay? That's going to be the type of breath that's going to help activate that calming system that we're trying to tap into. The next step is we're going to hold. After we breathe in, we're going to hold for 4 counts. We're then going to breathe out through our mouth for 4 counts, nice and slow. And then we're going to hold it for another 4 counts. This is why they call it box breathing. Well, I think that's why they call it box breathing. That's why I assume it's called box breathing. It's kind of to help you remember the counts. You're going to do, in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, and then hold for 4 again. So you're kind of going around in this box of 4 counts. And if 4 counts feels like too much or too little for you, if you feel lightheaded or uncomfortable in any way, I would say scale down first. Try doing 2 counts, try doing 3 counts, see if that feels okay. Because this might be much deeper than you're used to breathing. It might feel weird at first, but you can work up to 4. If 4 doesn't feel like enough, you're like, I'm at least this deep breath all the time. Maybe go higher, go 5 or 6. But the slow, deep breath, 4 is kind of the average. So we're going to start there. So I'll have us count and do this together. So for those of you who want to join along, I'm going to count us through. Let's do 2 rounds. We'll go around twice so you can kind of feel the pacing of what that's like. And then we'll kind of check in on the other side. How are we feeling? How are we doing with it? Okay. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and start the breath. All right. So go ahead and breathe in for 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Out. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. In. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Out. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's go back to your normal breathing. Okay, so then just check in with yourself. How are you feeling right now? What are you noticing? Do you feel any more relaxed? If you do, great. Or do you feel the potential for it? I mean, we went twice around. You could do breathing for, longer. I wouldn't, this is not a breath you should do all day, every day. This is too deep. Your body would be like, okay, that's enough oxygen, settle down. Like this is too much breath. But for those moments where you're really wanting to practice the technique, which is good to do for intentional moments in the day, do some breathing when you first get up or before you go to bed or before you brush your teeth, whatever works for you. Do a few minutes of breathing, get in the habit of doing it, do those daily habits, and then see if you notice something. By doing that, you're retraining your nervous system to calm down. That on switch that's been on for potentially a long time is going to need some reminding. We're going to have to get it to turn all the way off. The breathing is going to help with that. It's the physiological off switch that it might need. So do several minutes of breathing. And then if you need it in any given moment, if you're like, oh gosh, I'm really starting to get overwhelmed, pull it out then. And the more you practice it, the more likely you are to remember to use it later because it's going to be filed closer to the top, let's say, like it's more top of mind. So you'll be able to access that easier. And if it's helpful, again, write it down on that wellness toolbox somewhere you can, put it where you can access it. And then you got it ready to go if you need it. Okay. So moving on from breathing, moving on from grounding, that's 2 of the strategies. Check, check. Now we're wanting to look at what are some things you can do with your thoughts. How can you sort of think about things in a different way that might help with managing anxiety? So what I would say, this first one is sort of tapping into is this idea of noticing your thoughts, being able to take a step back from your thinking and the process of what you're doing and being able to observe it. being mindful, really, again, to some degree, wanting to take a step back and disconnect a little bit from the thoughts, be able to acknowledge them as thoughts. When we get too sort of fused with our thoughts and they're real sticky, you get those sticky thoughts going that are just kind of there all the time and they feel really powerful. One way to make them less powerful is take a step back and take a look at them. Say, all right, I see you thoughts. I see what's up. I am having the thought that this is scary, not I'm scared. I'm having the thought that I am scared. That helps to create some distance between you and that thought. By doing that and noticing your thoughts, you're able to help reduce sort of the power it has. You're unsticking it a little bit. You're diffusing, as we would say, from it. But in addition to that, it also gives you opportunity. You're seeing what that thought is, and it gives you opportunity to possibly reframe it, challenge that thought, give it new information. But that thought is not necessarily fact. It's not necessarily true. It's something that your brain is generating, and it's good at it. We want it to. That's what the brain does all day. It's thinking, it's doing its job, but we want to be able to point your brain in a direction that's going to create more helpful thoughts. If it's an unhelpful thought, then maybe we want to, give it something else to chew on instead of churning on this unhelpful one. So focusing on what you can control can help with that. So it might help again with kind of aiming the thoughts in a direction that feels more productive. Okay, I'm anxious about my treatment today, but what I can do is I can care for my body right now, and that will help get me through this moment. So being able to kind of refocus in a moment that feels really anxiety inducing on what you can control, what you can do about it, will help you sort of shift that thinking and unstick it a little bit. Again, giving you some opportunities to bring that stress level down into something that feels more manageable. Letting your thoughts pass. I don't know if other people have ever been introduced to leaves on a stream, but that's a common mindfulness visualization or activity. That is something that's really good for this particular type of strategy. So the idea is to let thoughts pass you by without engaging with them. You can have thoughts. Thoughts are wonderful. I'm not expecting you to stop having these thoughts. I'm not going to expect you to stop having automatic negative thoughts either. Those are going to come and go. Whether or not you pay attention to them, that's a choice you can make. Whether or not you're engaging with them, that's something we have more control over. So letting those thoughts pass you by, you have a thought, maybe the one that I just said, I'm really anxious about my treatment. Okay, that thought is there. Let it go right past you without engaging with it. Let that cruise right past, not have it trigger another thought and then another thought and another thought. So one way to practice doing that is to sort of close your eyes and imagine that there's a stream, there's some leaves in that stream. You're going to place that thought as it pops up on one of the leaves, and that stream is going to just carry it away all the way out of view. That a thought pops up, put that on a leaf, let it carry it all the way out of view. Again, not engaging with it. There's lots of different versions of this on like YouTube and things, or the Calm app or Headspace. All have like leaves on a stream is a pretty common mindfulness one. If you guys want like guided practice on that, that's a good one to try. Still working with your thoughts. Another strategy is riding the wave. It's sort of an acknowledgement that this feeling will pass, that no feeling is final, positive or negative feelings, that they come and go, that there's this sort of wave, an ebb and flow with our emotions as as our emotions react to things that are going on around us, and that at some point that feeling will change. So it's kind of riding the wave, trying to stay steady while that wave is going on. And sometimes through maybe some of those general wellness strategies, keeping up with some of those daily habits that, just help you to feel well enough to cope with things. That's going to give you a bit more capacity to ride those waves when they come up. Sharing and connecting. So talking with someone that you trust. I know Christine mentioned earlier, her sister-in-law and other family members have been really important in this way. Maybe coming up with mottos together. I love it. Having some sort of mantra that you can encourage each other with, that's even better. But talking with someone, connecting with someone else, possibly people who've gone through similar experiences, like the folks in the support group. But just finding opportunities to share your experience and connect with others also gives you something else to focus on. It helps you to put your thoughts down, first of all. Gives you an opportunity to be like, oh, okay, I was thinking about this, and here's somewhere I can kind of put it. And it gives you those opportunities to think of something else. If you are fairly isolated, you kind of end up in bouncing off, the thoughts kind of bounce off of your own walls and back to you. If you have somewhere else to engage conversation or create other thoughts, that unsticks them in a way that now you're in sort of this dynamic that's allowing for new thoughts to enter. So sharing and connecting can be really powerful for a lot of reasons, but that might being engaged with other people, other groups, community things gives you other opportunities to think about other things as well. All right, living with uncertainty. This is a big one, and this all sort of falls under the managing sort of anxiety umbrella to some degree, but this is specific to, so how do you cope with that ambiguity? How do you sort of live in the gray area of not necessarily knowing what's going to happen next? One main strategy for this is focusing on what matters to you right now. So what's important to you? So being present is part of just general anxiety management, staying present with things. But in the present, in this moment right now, what's important? It's a really important thing to reflect on because that can change. This diagnosis, one of the things I hear from folks a lot is that it shifted their perspective on what was important to them. And they were able to sort of do a reflection on, is the way I'm living my life right now in line with what I find important? And if it's not, should I change that and do something different so that I'm living more in line with my values and what's important to me? So some people say, it's actually, that was a really amazing part of this experience has been it sort of forced a little bit that reflection on, and how am I living right now? And do I want to be doing something differently? But being able to kind of focus on what is important to you right now, and then making strides toward living with that in mind, doing those things that are important, putting time and energy into those things that are important, and putting that focus there instead of the focus on the things that you are worried about, can be really impactful. Taking it one day at a time and focusing on what can you do that day. We don't know what the future holds. That's the anxiety-inducing uncertainty of it all. But we can plan for today. We can decide what we're going to do today. We can decide to take care of ourselves today. That's something you have more control over. Taking it one day at a time, that alone can be helpful, pacing yourself in that way. Practicing acceptance. This might sound like a loaded description, because I don't mean acceptance in that you're liking the situation or you're kind of giving up on how things are. That's not what we mean by that. We mean more making room for your experience, allowing for the experience to happen instead of sort of denying or avoiding that it's happening. That sort of freeze response can put you into a place where you might avoid or withdraw from the intensity of this experience, because it can be very overwhelming. But what we find is that the more you're able to engage with it and start to tolerate it, people actually find they have more quality of life, that they're engaging in their life much in that thriver kind of way, like the quality that comes with being able to sit in that discomfort and process through it and kind of come to the other side to get back into living. It's really hard to do that unless you're able to accept sort of where you're at right now, sort of meeting yourself where you're at, which is going to be really hard when you're focusing a lot on who I used to be or who I imagined, so who I was or what I imagined my life would be, which are completely understandable thoughts to be having and to be focusing on. But it can make it really hard then to keep making strides forward or to get unstuck. Sometimes the sticky quality is living between those two versions of yourself instead of getting to know who you're at right now. Gently challenging unhelpful thoughts. So going back to this idea that our thoughts are going to come and go. They're doing their thing. Some of them more helpful than others. Oftentimes an unhelpful one just pops right in there. You didn't ask for it to be there, but it's there. A way you can work with those is gently challenging it, finding a way to reframe it, for instance. So you're kind of coming up with a different way of looking at the situation, or to challenge whether or not it's true. Like, show me the facts, give me the evidence. I had a very wise person refer to this as sort of going into detective brain. What would that look like potentially? So something like, I'm never going to get through this. If that thought pops into your head, you can reframe that and say, I can ask for help as I get through this. I can't get through this, but I might need some support. So you know what I can do? I can ask for help. I have control over this. Let me reframe the thought so that it's more of what I'm acknowledging in this emotion that's coming up, because emotions are just messages. It's just information. And we want to listen to them. It's giving you information. What is it trying to tell you? It might be telling you that this is really overwhelming and you might need some help. So maybe the thought is, what? I can ask for help in this situation, and that might help get me through. Instead of focusing on that I'm not going to get through this and having that that lead to other negative thoughts potentially, and possibly keeping you kind of frozen because you don't feel like you can get through it. Being kind to yourself. I mean, through all of this too, I'm giving you all sorts of different ideas of things that might be able to help. If any or all of them feel overwhelming to you, that's okay too. Being kind to yourself, doing what you can do right now, that's all we're asking. Being really gentle and kind with where you're at right now, speaking to yourself in a kind way. Sometimes we're the worst critics of ourselves. That finger pointing that goes inward, we just need to be really aware of. That pressure to have everything figured out, the pressure to get sort of back to where you feel like you need to be, the expectations you have on yourself, being really kind and compassionate with yourself that this is really challenging and that things may need to change and there may need to be things that you're adapting to or trying a different approach to that might help with sort of seeing yourself where you're at right now and might help you engage in life in a way that feels more meaningful. Letting yourself hope and dream. Sometimes this one doesn't get talked about as much, but that forward thinking that our brains like to live in the future of let me worry about all these things that may happen. What if things go right? What about that? What about the other side of the coin, right? Being able to provide the opportunity for the full range. Like let's have the expand thinking to not only be the sort of negative side of all the things that could go wrong that your brain is thinking about. It's designed to do that. It's looking for threats. Your brain is like, I got to make sure you're safe. I'm going to look for all the things that might hurt you and focus on those forever. That's okay. We're acknowledging that that happens. That's the way things tend to go. Okay, so we can do something about that. We can notice it's happening, be present with it, be mindful, take a step back from it and see that is happening, and then shift our focus to what could go right. When we think of all those things, what do I want to go right? What do I want to do? What is important to me? Going back to that question, and then what are the steps to implementing that? What do I hope this month will be like? What do I hope this year will be like? And then are there things that you can do to move that direction? Oftentimes there's little steps you can do that are going to help get you out of that stuck position and moving you toward living a life that feels more in line with what's important to you and where you're at right now. All right, so I'm going to do a brief summary, and then Christine, I want to have you come back and talk a little bit more about your experience, but just overall, so what we're speaking to today, I really want to reinforce that these can be small, gentle habits that if you do sort of daily, if you can, consistency with them, such as, working on some sleep if that's a challenge area for you right now, maybe getting a little more movement if you can, finding ways to connect with others, that those can make like a really meaningful difference in how you're feeling. Using your strengths, you all have amazing strengths, tap into those, right? Tap into how those show up for you. And if there's a support system around you, use it, right? Find the people that are willing to laugh with you, right? And help you in these moments that are really challenging. Using some strategies like the deep breathing, that diaphragmatic breathing or box breathing, mindfulness, trying to stay more present, grounding. Those can all really help when moments are feeling more challenging, especially the anxiety kinds of moments. Pulling those out might be really particularly impactful then, or when you're concerned about seizure management or other challenges that might kind of ebb and flow. Unstick your thoughts by responding to them in new ways. We can't necessarily stop the thought. That thought's going to pop up, right? But we can respond to them in a way where we're not giving them the control. We're not engaging with them. And when we start to reframe and untwist those thoughts a bit and step back from them, we'll start to open opportunity for new thoughts to come in that might be more helpful than the ones that are there. Focus on what matters to you most. That could be valued activities. That could be a good gratitude practice. I'm telling you, can be really impactful in itself. Just at the end of the day, naming 3 things that you're grateful for, and then notice, does that help? Are you seeing things through a different lens? Your brain connections will actually shift and change if you do something like that. It can be small and can make a really big difference on a lot of levels. Taking a break, if you need to, because not every strategy is going to work 100% of the time. Try again later if you need to. Take a deep breath, reset if necessary. Let yourself take breaks throughout the day and pace yourself so that you're not feeling as overwhelmed and that fatigue is also not impacting you as much. So when you take those steps toward connecting with what is meaningful to you, which again might have changed, what's meaningful to you right now, sort of accepting where you're at right now and accepting sort of the emotions and the feelings that you're having around this experience. and then sort of disengaging with some of those thoughts that may not be serving you right now. That can really lead to like some really powerful resilience. So that then when as these moments continue to ebb and flow, you might have, you feel like really confident in your capacity to tackle them and to cope and live um, and thrive in the way that is in line with your values and the way that you're hoping. And I just wanted to point out if any of these things kind of made sense to you, sort of struck a chord, and you're wanting more like one-on-one support with your specific situation, or you feel like you're having some anxiety that's like interfering with your day-to-day, it's feeling unmanageable, talk to your providers, see if there's mental health care options for you within UCSF. Me and my colleagues in the Brain Tumor Center are available. Outside of UCSF, you might talk to your primary care doctor or your neuro-oncologist and see if there's other resources available. And then speaking of resources, let me just throw this on here real quick. Hold on, let me circle back. This resources area, this will be on the PowerPoints also, but I put in a bunch of links that hopefully when you click on them will actually work. But if not, it's sort of describing where they are. But links to some different resources are our Brain Tumor Center resource page, where this is going to be posted. Also has a bunch of other cool resources. If you haven't gone there yet, I highly recommend it. So that's the first one on there, our supportive care services. There's a link to the wellness guide that this is all from. I have some ideas of different apps you can use that do guided practices like this. It's kind of hard to get started on your own if you're not as familiar with some of these, but like Headspace, Calm, all these other apps have guided practices for mindfulness, for grounding, things that might be able to kind of get you started. And then you can kind of take it and run with it after that if you want. And then if you don't want to do apps, there's Headspace has come up with some great YouTube videos that are free. I'm really grateful to them for this. There's some of the best quality ones, I think, and through YouTube, they're like, free little 3 to 5 minute videos that can at least kind of give you something to get started with. And then, I don't know, if you like Headspace, then maybe you invest. I don't know. But the I don't work for Headspace. Let me caveat that I don't get any money from recommending them, but they just happen to have particularly good videos in this realm around things like mindfulness and grounding and breathing. So there's some other resources. I want to jump back to talking with Christine though before we wrap up and make sure that we're able to talk to her about this part as well. Let me stop sharing. So Christine, after hearing about all those different strategies and things that you might be able to do to help manage the anxiety, help with that living with uncertainty, I kind of wanted to check in with you on your experience with that and with using some of those strategies, how that's been going for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's been going really well for me, honestly. Having those different tools in my toolbox. Like I was saying before I realized we were not in that space yet. The thing, like when I have like seizure auras or what I think are going to be seizure auras, I, do my box breathing. And then I tend to find out that it's really not an aura, or it might be, but like it doesn't accumulate into a seizure per se. And so it lets me put my guard back down, and it lets me just be like, okay, I'm okay. Like there's no need to, freak out, and you can go about your day. And then that's like one of my biggest ones that I've really had with the uncertainty. And then my other one has really been, I was 26 years old when I was diagnosed. And so being 29 now, I've like, talked with some people, and it's like, what is the future going to look like? I don't know. And so I think that's one of my biggest things, but I do know that I have the support system. I know that I have been made it so far, and that I've accepted, like you said, making this into acceptance. The first 2 years, I don't think I would have been able to do public speaking like this. This is my third time around, and I would not have been able to do any sort of public appearance like this. I would have just been way too much for me to handle. I would have been crying. I just would have been a mess all over the place. And I think I've really taken that and seen, okay, you know what? This is my life. It is, my other phrase with my mom is, it is what it is. You're not going to do anything about it. There's nothing that can fix it. And so you just got to go out and live every day how you want to live it. Because I've been doing more stuff this year, like going out, traveling to places than I have in the first 2 years after I was diagnosed. So I've just felt like, you know what, I've got myself, I've done the work, and I put into myself what I need to do in order to be okay with the acceptance and the general practicality of what's going to go on in the future. Because, like you said, we don't know the future, but we do know what we can do here and now to make sure that we put ourselves in a spot to really put the best foot forward.
Beautifully said. I love that. I'm wondering too, for because you mentioned when you were first diagnosed and where you feel like you were at that time versus now. For other people who might be on here that this is pretty new to them, that they're pretty close to their diagnosis. Do you have any advice for them in particular, like looking back on things?
Definitely only be with people who are going to support you and make sure you just put yourself first. Do not have anyone in your life that you feel like you need to put before yourself while you're managing this. I made that mistake, but I didn't know because I had no one in my life who, was diagnosed with a brain tumor or had a brain tumor or anything like that. I say make sure you are your number one priority. No one else is going to be your number one priority but you, and make sure that you do what is going to be best for you. Your family will completely understand, and those who love and support you will understand. The ones who don't, you don't need those people in your life because they're just going to drag you down. You only want people who are going to be there and say, you're going to do that thing. Okay, I'm right there with you. I'm going to be right on the back of you, going down that road with you. So I feel like that is the number one thing that I would have loved to have for myself back when I was first diagnosed. So I think that's the biggest piece of advice I can give to anyone who's just got newly diagnosed or just had surgery or anything like that.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you for sharing all of that, your experience, your wisdom, and what it's been like to use some of these strategies too. What's been helpful. I'm aware of the time, and I want to make sure that we have time for questions too. So I don't know if Dr. Taylor, if you have seen any in the chat, if anyone has anything we could address before we sign off.
Well, first of all, Dr. Brie, that was great. I really can't remember the last time I have felt so like present and relaxed. I know that there were several staff members who zoomed in as well. And so I think so much of this is so helpful in so many different walks of life. So I just want to thank you so much for sharing this in this venue this evening. So there were a couple questions in the chat that I thought we could touch on a bit. And actually, Chrissy, you just touched a little bit on this too. Some I think it's a good thing to remember that the anxiety and these are neurochemical reactions. They're physiologic in our brains. And those of you on the call who have brain tumors, all of that ends up getting disrupted. And so I think even it makes so much sense that some of these challenges exist in brain tumor patients because that's where the tumor is. And the skill, however, the neuroplasticity and the skills that you've given everyone today, I think are really high value because even if there is a tumor and even if you're going through treatment, these are still things that can be physiologically beneficial. And there's been so much research in brain health over the last several years that are so applicable. And I loved how you kind of cog rehabbed a lot of these things and making them like their structure, their goal setting, they're really incredibly high value. I think someone had mentioned specifically that seizure auras and anxiety, depending on location, can really feel very similar. And just to acknowledge that, and you had mentioned, Chrissy, like sometimes you will, when you're having a seizure, that there is some awareness that you're able to bring to that experience, knowing, of course, now what it is. That may not work for everybody at every time, and I think still when having those skills can be very helpful in making sure that if there is sort of these gray zones that you're not sure if it's a seizure or if it's anxiety, that you let your neuro-oncologist know, and then making sure that we can address those things with certain medicines and understand them the best that we can. And I think that another question that sort of come up in the chat is for families and caregivers. What are ways to help sort of support those people who are grappling with anxiety for their loved ones are balancing with anxiety. And so, but people in your life want to fix things. And we've kind of talked about that this is uncertainty and has a domino effect. And so I was wondering, Dr. Brie, if you could comment a bit about your discussions with family members sometimes when that
Sure.
gets brought in for
Yeah,
the caregivers on the
I
call.
really appreciate someone bringing that up too, because I meant to address too that a lot of these strategies, or all of them really, are really applicable to caregivers as well. So I just want to put that out there too, that all these can be really helpful with managing the stress that comes with, loving someone going through something like this as well. Um, so hopefully, it can be beneficial for a lot of folks. And within that, what I oftentimes am talking to families about is opening up the communication around this then that both people or all the people involved have been affected by this in some way, and that people may be struggling, and that being able to talk about it is so important in that process because it helps with understanding, first of all, because a lot of people, to your point, the brain tumor, the way it impacts the brain can create some changes. It might be harder to regulate emotions. It might have some personality changes or irritability, other things that come with it that might stress relationships overall. So um, those moments of connection, being able to talk to each other about the experiences you're having, and being able to come to an understanding about what each other needs. So sometimes it's literally, when you talk about the cog rehab piece, sometimes it's literally writing that down. Like what are the things that you need to help you in these moments, and what are the things that I need that tend to help me in these moments? Because sometimes they're not the same, and I think we make assumptions accidentally that that is the case, and we think we're helping, and it turns out they wanted something different. So being really open in the communication with each other around, okay, this is how I'm feeling right now. I tend to feel like this in these moments. When I'm feeling like this, can you please? And then writing down what might be helpful. And then again, you can use that wellness toolbox for that purpose. You can write down maybe one for you, one for the other person, and put that somewhere where you can kind of cross-reference. A lot of people find it helpful to have the, the team around you know about what you're going through and what tends to work for you. Because, like I mentioned, when you're under a lot of stress, you might not be thinking clearly enough to come up with some of these ideas on your own. That's just our brain, just it's a lot for it to handle. So having an external person over here saying, hey, why don't we go for a walk? Why don't we try doing a walk and see if we feel a little better? Or, okay, why don't we sit down? Why don't we do some breaths with me? And then if they're doing it together too, usually it's benefiting both people involved. So kind of checks a few boxes again. But I think the open communication around it, and being able to talk about and understand what tends to help each person in the party, and being able to maybe even document that so that you have a really clear understanding, can be one way of addressing that.
And then also, well, Chris, anything to add to that?
Oh yeah.
No, yeah. I mean, just for me, I remember just being like just very tired. And so my parents, I have a little bit of a different situation since I don't live with my parents. So I or like live around a lot of family. And so I just kind of tell them like if I'm like home or with them, I'm tired and be like, my tired is not the same as your tired. They're two completely different tireds. And so my mom would kind of say, that this, she'd be like, well, you woke up at 9 and you're already tired at like 12 or, something like that. Be like, mom, I am very tired. And the things I go through are not like your typical tiredness. And so me and her have had to have very intense talks back and forth, me and my family. And I've had to be very, very open and honest about everything that I'm going through with them, and we've not had a lot of that type, like we've been open and honest but not this, like, I think straightforward and honest about what each other needs before. And especially with me, just about saying, hey, if I say this, this is what I'm gonna need. And if I'm like sleeping, like don't like come at me or say like, oh, well, you've been doing this too long if I come to visit you guys or something like that. It's because I need to be sleeping. Like I am just either too overwhelmed or something, happens, and I just need to take my space away from people or everybody. So it's just one of those things that I'm now very direct with my parents and any other of my family involved with it. I'm just very direct with them and say exactly what I need.
And as a reminder, I think that to everybody, the caregiver support groups and peer to peer and some of those kind of aspects too, I think can also be beneficial, and just kind of build everyone's toolboxes, because it all helps sort of, with each other for sure. Thank you all. Chrissy, it was just, you did a beautiful job and described everything. And Dr. Brie, just really very helpful for everybody, I think, who is on the call tonight. So I'll turn it back over to you, Naomi, for any kind of closing words.